Guys, today we are going to be talking about a very topical issue that I think everybody's just been skirting about, not wanting to talk about, not wanting to address it, especially here in the diaspora. And today we're going to talk about why migrants, immigrants, especially in the African community, because at least that's where I'm privileged to tap into or to try and understand why people are now going back home, why people are now leaving the UK and going back home, especially I'm not talking about people that have been here for longer, people that are now retiring back home, but I want to talk about people that recently came over on a health and care worker visa, to be more precise, why people are now going back home or are choosing to go back home or are feeling the UK is not for them. So it's a sad situation because I know for a fact I came on a skilled worker visa, and when we were relocating, we wanted to change our lives. We wanted a future for our children. So what has gone wrong? What is it that we have missed? So that brings us to the topic of the day. So I won't be focusing on political reasons or economic reasons why people are deciding to go back home. But I want to talk about some of the personal reasons, sad but personal reasons why people, especially who came on a COS, on a skilled worker visa, have decided or are deciding they're now going back home, because the numbers are increasing. Day by day, I see people are now just coming out in the open, like, I want to go back home, I'm getting ready to go home, I feel lost. And that's why I thought I'll make this video and share some of the struggles so that people are kind to each other, people are understanding when people just give up on this journey. Guys, a big welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Florence. If you're watching me for the first time on this platform, we talk about life in the diaspora, life abroad. And I talk mostly about the UK because that's where I am, but we're not limited to that. We talk about other countries' opportunities. For as long as it's the diaspora, we talk about opportunities. And feel welcome. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, then you're missing out on so much. Please do subscribe. And if you are a subscriber and you've come back to watch this video, thank you so much for the love and support. Stay tuned, as we've got so much that we'll be unpacking in terms of opportunities going into 2025. So here is the place to be. So guys, without wasting much of your time, we'll get straight into the details of today's video. First and foremost, one of the things that I want to make people understand is the fact that this health and care worker visa was introduced for the UK, was introduced in August 2020. That was roundabout end of COVID, so that's when this visa was introduced. And I think that was just like after Brexit. So, us, because we are Africans never share opportunities, life-changing opportunities. You get to know them last when they are finished sharing with their friends and family. So when this visa was introduced, people that got to know about it were sharing with their close friends and families. Good for them. Because I'll share with you, we got to know about this visa in, I think March of 2021. But it had been introduced probably like 6 months earlier or even more. Why did I choose to talk about the origins or when it was introduced? It was because people that came round about that time had it quite easy and things were working out so smoothly. This visa was a blessing then. I'll share with you why I'm saying that. Round about that time, people were applying for jobs. People were getting jobs. And that time, most companies were even paying for people to write their IELTS. People were having their flights paid for. People were having their accommodation paid for because the country was desperate for people to work in care. So that made it so easy for people to settle in. It made it easier for people to feel welcome and integrate within the community. Come 2021, 2022, information is out there. Everyone has realized like this is a window of opportunity to move to the UK. People started like flooding the country. People were coming in droves. And I think that's when everything went wrong. I don't want to lay blame on anybody, whether employers or the people that were coming, but I will state what I think, and these are entirely my opinions. I could be wrong, I could be right, but this is my own analysis. Round about that time, some unethical, unscrupulous people rode on that wave. People started like being unethical in terms of recruitment, in terms of the way they were issuing the certificates of sponsorships. That's when people started to be charged for these certificates of sponsorship. People were asked to pay huge sums of money. And those that had the money were paying. Why do I say I don't want to take away from very ethical, hardworking companies, hardworking employers who are doing things by the book? Amazing, brilliant companies, and kudos to them. Because it doesn't mean everybody is bad. There are some good companies out there, good small companies out there, and may they continue to do their good work. But I think the majority of the organizations that time were fleecing people of their hard-earned cash. People were paying to come to the UK, which shouldn't have been in the first place. And I think this became maybe the source of the problems that I'm going to discuss into this video. So people were asked to pay for COSs, and people would come to the country and there was no work for them. There were no hours for them. People would be asked to live like in very, very, very squalid conditions. People were being asked to like live in dozens in one room. The conditions were just unbearable. That's not the UK that people imagined. That's not the life that they imagined they would live whilst living in Europe. So I think when you think about it, if people are faced with such conditions, you've paid so much money, you come to the UK, and then there's no work, the conditions are bad, you've left family, you've got this, there was all sorts going on. But we're not here to talk about the recruitment process and everything. We're here to talk about then what triggered for people to say the UK is not for me. So fast forward, people were still coming. But I think we cannot ignore the fact that even the government, even the Home Office realized like, no, I think we made a mistake. I think we opened the door for trouble. That's when in April 2024, this year, they stopped people on care worker visa, senior care workers, from bringing in their dependents. Good for them, good for the country. But for people that would want to migrate, people that would want to relocate and start a life for themselves, it meant separation from family, which is one of the things that I'll talk about in this video, to say it's causing people so much trauma, so much mental health, to the extent that people are just going like, I can't do this anymore, I'm going back home. And this is sad. So the first thing that I want to highlight is one of the major reasons why people are deciding they want to go back home is isolation and loneliness. People came over. I'm one of those people that came over. I came with my husband, but we left our children. That isolation, that separation, some can survive it, some can live it, but for some it's hell. For some it's unbearable, especially with the uncertainty that you don't know when, you don't know whether or not you will reunite as a family. That can tear you apart. That can shred you into pieces. And for some people, they may never cope, they may never recover, and in the end, they decide to go back home. By what do I mean by loneliness? We were used to a certain lifestyle when we were back home. I am Zimbabwean, and we are a happy nation, we're happy people. Of course, we do have our economic struggles and everything, but we know how to have fun. So when we came over here, like, nobody speaks to anybody. You can spend a year and you haven't spoken to your neighbor. You don't know them. You don't interact with them. It's not how we were used. It's not how we were socialized. Let alone when we came over with thinking, I'll be spending so much time with like my friends who had relocated earlier. I'll be spending time with my family who had relocated here earlier. But that's not the case. In this country, people work. In this country, people are busy. Sometimes when you are off, your friend or your colleague is working, or your husband or partner is working. So it can really get so lonely. And the first thing that kicks in is homesickness. You just start missing home. You just start missing like all those weekends that you didn't have to work, and you'd go to Mashwede, you'd go to this vibing joint, things like that. You don't have that in this country. So you feel lost at the end of the day. The second thing I want to talk about and address is the cultural difference. This one is a big one. We live it, we feel it, and it affects us daily. How is it affecting people? I, I'll speak what I know, what I've lived. There's a big gap, a big divide in the way that we're culturally socialized and the way life is over here. I'll give you a very simple example to say, like, roles in the home. Back home, our husbands never used to look after children. Yes, they love their children, but like they never had to like be socially responsible for them, like day-to-day life. No, that's the role of a mom. But then you come to this country and you're working. That means if I'm at work, my husband has to watch the children, has to take the children to school, has to make sure they're fed, has to make sure the house is clean, has to make sure food has been prepared for everybody. They're not socialized that way. They were never raised that way. And it takes great character, and kudos to those husbands, those partners who are standing in that gap and working together with their wives and partners to raise a family together, to share roles and responsibilities in the home. For most, it's a big struggle. I hear a lot of feedback from most men, like, why do I have to be asked to cook? I'm being asked to take the kids to school every day. But for people who have grown in these countries, for people who live here, it's the norm. There's nothing wrong with that. But for African men, it's a whole lot of a different ballgame altogether. They feel undermined. They feel ridiculed. They feel, I can't find the right word for that. And goodness to those who make a quick turnaround and adjust and fit in. But for some, it's a struggle to fit in, to adjust, to be a part and parcel of that society where it's very normal for you to take your children to school every day. Oh yeah, to cook for your children, to take them everywhere, to clean the house, cook for your wife and things like that. And most men are just feeling like, I'm lost. And that you feel like you're fighting every day. You feel like you're nagging each other. You have to ask like several times every day for somebody to do something. But with patience and everything, it takes patience. It takes talking about it as partners, as married couples, for you to get over it. But for some, they never get over it. And in the end, I've seen people go like, we're going back home. They feel, maybe the other partner is feeling like he doesn't support me, or she doesn't support me, or she doesn't appreciate what I do. Or it's a constant back and forth. Cultural differences. Big challenge in these communities, and it's triggering people to go like, I can't live this life forever. I can't do this every day, and I'm going back home where they get all the support. The other thing, most people that came over, at some point, if they've got children, if they're family people, they've always had a helper when they were back home, but that helper is not there anymore. So you got to share those responsibilities and roles. You got to even like socialize your children and teach them to say, oh, you help with chores, you make your beds, you do your own laundry, things like that. They're small tasks. But for some, they never recover from all of that. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is the quality of life. I'm one of those people that struggled a lot. I still do struggle. The weather is just horrendous. It's always cold, raining, damp. It's depressing. You can literally like spend the whole year waiting for summer, like, okay, in summer I'll do this and this. And then literally the summer never comes because it's still cold, it's still raining, it's still dark and gloomy. I don't know. For some, they can cope with that. I'm one person, if it's cold like that, if it's winter, I hardly want to get out of the house. I hardly want to do anything. I only get out of the house when it's necessary. And necessary for me is when I have to go to work or when I have to take the kids to school. But like fathers, they long for that outdoor life. They long for, the vibe of being outside, which is what we're used to if you're African like me. And this can take a hard toll to say like, so are we going to go for 6 long months? And it's like this. They won't cope. It affects your mental health in the end. And people just go like, I want to go back home. I miss my people. I miss the outdoors. I miss waking up every day and it's nice and warm. And I look forward to the bright African sun. So people end up like going back home. The fifth thing that I want to talk about is unmet expectations. Guys, I don't want to lie to you. I'm one of those who, when I got my visa, when I got my job offer, I was just like, oh my God, now I'll start living. Now I'll be living the dream. Until I came over. The difference between the dream and the reality is just so big. Reality begins to settle in. For me, it was, I don't know why I thought like everyone lives in London. And it's unfortunate I don't live in London, or I don't live in any of those big cities, but I live in a very small town, very, very small, where there's no McDonald's, where there's no cinema, there's not all of those things that you can imagine. It's the reality of things. Well, that was fair enough. You live in the middle of nowhere. But the thought that for you to even be able to afford the designer clothes that we used to see our relatives put on, to afford their holidays and all the eating out that we would see them in pictures and everything on social media, you would have worked your back off. You would have worked so hard. You would have worked extra. You won't even have the time to enjoy it. If there is anything that the life in the UK has taught me, is that you work for the life that you want to live. You work so hard for you to achieve that life. Now, for most people, just like me, we didn't expect that. Worse off the different shift patterns. We've always known, I'm always saying, in Zimbabwe, where I come from, everything shuts at 7, 8, 9. There's no 24-hour life like in this country. The different shifts, the non-stop hecticness, the busyness, it's just like the fast life. You just feel like if you stop for a second, then life just passes you by. Everything passes you by. There's no break. We didn't expect that. So when people realize like you have to work for you to afford certain things and to work extra hard, worst of the jobs that we came with are not the so highly paying, but are the lowest paying jobs. So you need to work so hard for you to afford certain things, so hard for you to afford to even eat out, so hard for you, let alone to afford a holiday. And now for some, there are some people who came over, but they had a decent life back home. They had a good life back home. And when they reflect, they go like, I didn't sign up for this. I can't do this. I can't do 2, 3 jobs. It's one thing that I just got like, I think our friends and relatives who came over first, or us, why didn't they tell us we have to work this hard for us to live the life that they've lived? Again, one of the things that I want to, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, you're sitting on the fence whether to stay or to go, one of the things that I want to emphasize is the fact that like, give yourself time. I've had the privilege and chance to speak to people that came here like 20 years ago. When you see them now and you hear their story, you hear where they've come from, you just go like, okay, yeah, they worked so hard. They studied so hard. They made some tough decisions and choices along the way. They were patient enough with their journey, and now they are now enjoying their life. So there's hope at the end of the tunnel, which is why for now some of us are still put, but doesn't mean it's easy. It's still as hard. And we feel for those who are going like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this another day. And if you are feeling that overwhelmed, please do reach out and find support. Reach out to your family and friends. And if you feel like you're on the edge, probably going home is for you. Last but not least, I want to talk about some of the negative experiences that people are having to go through. This could be at work. This could be in their personal life. This could be anywhere. I'll touch on a few things. There's so many people who came and they were hoping for a good life for their families, good life for their children. But with everything that I've said throughout this video, these things can put a strain on relationships. These things can put strain on marriages. And some relationships have broken down. Some marriages have become non-existent. And as such, other people are choosing like, there's no life for me if there's no marriage or relationship, so I can as well go back home. People are having to make those tough decisions and tough choices, which is very sad. Because when we left home, we were hoping for a good future for our families and children. We were hoping for a start of a new life. But life happens, and it for real happens. it's a good thing if you are able to go back home and you're still in one piece, which is what we want at the end of the day. Probably you'll give it another go at some point. Probably you'll even do better when you go back home. The second thing, when it comes to negative experiences, this could be like legal battles. This could be bad experiences at work. It's been tough. People are going through the most at work because of culture and everything, work ethic and everything. People are making mistakes at work. People are finding themselves in disciplinary hearings and battles. So this can put a strain on your mental health. We were hoping to come and work. We were hoping to come here and put in the work, do our best. But when such things happen, this can make you think twice. Like, I don't want to end up being locked up in jail in this country. I don't want to end up being maybe blacklisted or anything, or deported. So other people are opting to just go back home, go back to do the things that they have always been used to. So guys, this is sad. We have to talk about these things, and it's very sad. So before I end this video, I want to leave you with one takeaway, to say be kind to everybody that you come across, because people are going through the most. You just never know what the next person is going through. So just be kind. Be kind with your words. Be kind with your actions. Be kind with everything that you do, because you just never know what the next person is going through, and people are going through the most. Even to those that will be our support system back home. When you see people coming back home, don't look at them and point fingers at them like, you're the lazy ones. Trust me, they would have tried. Trust me, they would have given it their best. But this diaspora journey, sometimes it's not for them. Sometimes it's not for everybody. But that's not to take away from all the successful ones in the diaspora, people that I've actually been fortunate enough and are achieving things in the diaspora. I hope to talk about that. I hope to share on that, on some of the things, some of the proud moments that people are celebrating in these short spaces of time. There are some people that are doing things right. There are some people who have been mentored right. No wonder why I never stop talking about mentorship. I never stop about us doing it as a community, to say what will happen if we come together as a community and we begin to share on opportunities, share on the things that can make us better, instead of just congregating and sharing on things that are negative, on things that do not edify our lives. Guys, this is all I had for you today in this video, and I will see you in our next video. Guys, bye for now.